Okay, we're going to look at Meilah 13a in the William Davidson Talmud. So first, what is this? Meilah is a section in the Talmud. It is also a section. It's also a section in the Mishnah. If you look in the Mishnah, Meilah is under Seder Kodashim. If you look in the Talmud, again, under Seder Kodashim, you see Meilah. Now, there is a slight difference. In the Talmud, you see it has 9 tractates. But if you go to the Mishnah and you look at Seder Kodashim, you see 11 tractates. So the last 2 are actually not listed in the Talmud there. Now we are in Talmud Bavli, and there are 6 orders: Seder Zeraim, Moed, Nashim, Nezikin, Kodashim, Tahorot. And under that, each of these, like Meilah, are tractates. And you saw that there are 11 tractates in the Mishnah, but we see 9 in the Talmud Bavli. Kodashim stands for holy things or sacrifices, sacred things, sanctified things. It deals with the temple service and the slaughter of animals. Those 2 items, temple service and the slaughter of animals. So when we look at Meilah 13a, we see temple maintenance and sacrifice on the altar or slaughter of animals. So those are the 2 topics for Kodashim. In the Mishnah, Kodashim was compiled around 200 AD, that's the Tanaic period, by Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, also called Judah the Prince, and his colleagues. By around 500 AD, the Gemara was produced, that's commentary on the Mishnah, using the same organization as the Mishnah, and it's built out of the Mishnah. That's why you see Kodashim both in the Mishnah and in the Talmud. So the Babylonian Talmud, that's the Gemara and the Mishnah together, Bavli, was compiled during the 3rd to 6th centuries. Rav Ashi and Ravina II are credited as the compilers. There's also the Tosefta, which has the same organization as the Mishnah and the Talmud. And the Tosefta is probably from around 200 AD and can be thought of as a supplement to the Mishnah and follows the organization of the Mishnah as well. Haya Bar Abba is the main compiler of the Tosefta. When we talk about Meilah 13a, we are looking at Masaket or tractate Meilah. And again, Meilah is sacrilege, the sin of benefiting from consecrated property in a forbidden manner. Okay? Meilah is the sin of benefiting from consecrated property in a forbidden manner. So all the biblical laws that Meilah discusses are in Leviticus chapter 5, verses 15 and 16. The book or scroll or Sefer of Leviticus. It's also called Sefer Vayakira, literally a scroll for Leviticus. So Vayakira stands for and he called. And that is another word for Leviticus. It's the Hebrew way of referring to Leviticus. Vayakira, and he called. It's the third book of the Torah pertaining to the Levites. The laws of Meilah forbid deriving benefit from sanctified objects. An individual who contravenes this prohibition is obligated to bring a korban asham, a guilt offering. So korban is a sacrifice. The plural is korbanot. Leviticus, so everything in here in Meilah is based on Leviticus chapter 5, verses 15 and 16. If a soul commit a trespass and sin through ignorance in the holy things of the Lord, then he shall bring for his trespass unto the Lord a ram without blemish out of the flocks, with thy estimation by shekels of silver after the shekel of the sanctuary, for a trespass offering. And 16, and he shall make amends for the harm that he hath done in the holy thing, and shall add the fifth part thereto, and give it unto the priest, and the priest shall make an atonement for him with the ram of the trespass offering, and it shall be forgiven him. So in Leviticus chapter 5, verse 15, you see the word ma'al. That's where you get Meilah from. And ma'al is translated as trespass. That's Strong's H4603 and H4604. Gesenius says it is to act unfaithfully or treacherously. So Meilah 13a, Mishnah with regard to consecrated item fit for sacrifice, that's also in the Mishnah Meilah 3, I guess 3:6. Whatever is fit for the altar and not for temple repair and not for the altar. This is the Mishnah, this is the William Davidson Talmud, and they correspond. So the Mishnah is from around 200 AD, and the Gemara is from around 500 AD. So the Mishnah we're looking at is from around the 2nd century. Okay, Mishnah. So we're going to start at the end of the previous section, 12b. Mishnah, with regard to any consecrated item that is fit. So this word consecrated is in the Bible. So this Mishnah is talking about consecrate. That word is in the Bible. So let's have a look at that word. Consecrate is kadash. To consecrate, kadash means to consecrate, sanctify, prepare, dedicate, be hallowed, be holy, be sanctified, be separate. In this particular situation, right here, le kadisho. Right here you see kadash, the root, is used in the text. Okay, so we're talking about a consecrated item that is fit for sacrifice on the altar, but is not fit for temple maintenance. So that's the altar and temple maintenance. Or if it is fit for temple maintenance, but not for sacrifice on the altar. Again, you see temple maintenance, altar. Or fit neither for the altar nor for temple maintenance. So each of the cases, it's either fit for temple maintenance, not for the altar, fit for the altar, but not fit for temple maintenance, or it's consecrated, but it's not fit for the altar sacrifice, and it's not fit for temple maintenance. So they're covering all the possible cases. All right, so it says the Mishnah all right, with regard to any consecrated item that is fit for sacrifice on the altar, but is not fit for temple maintenance, or if it is fit for temple maintenance, but not for sacrifice on the altar, or fit neither for the altar nor for temple maintenance, nevertheless, one is liable for misusing it. The Mishnah clarifies each of these categories. Fit for temple maintenance, but not for sacrifice on the altar. How so? Okay, so the first case they're going to look at is a cistern full of water. So later on, I will actually look at cisterns in the Bible. All right, in a case where one consecrated a cistern full of water, the water is not fit for sacrifice on the altar, as only water from the Siloam pool is used for the altar. So you got a container, it holds water. You put the container itself is consecrated, but you put water in there that does not come from the Siloam pool. So according to this, it will not be fit for sacrifice on the altar. Okay, so it says here, nevertheless, it is fit for temple maintenance, e.g., to knead clay with it for use in reinforcing the walls of the temple. Okay, so you have a container full of water. Since the water is not from the Siloam pool, it cannot be used for the altar. But the water that you have in that cistern can be used for reinforcing the walls of the temple, which is, in that case, it's temple maintenance. So here, a cistern full of water is an example of something that is not fit for sacrifice, but is fit for temple maintenance. All right, what is the case of we'll look at the Siloam pool later too. All right, what is the case of an item fit neither for the altar nor for temple maintenance? Okay, if one consecrated garbage dumps full of manure, the place and its contents are fit neither for the altar nor for temple maintenance. All right, so a garbage dump, they pick something that's pretty nasty. It's full of manure. And so they're saying you consecrate it or set it apart, but you cannot use that for an altar sacrifice, and you cannot use that for temple maintenance. So that's a consecrated item that's not fit for either of the two items. So we have a cistern that's fit for one and not the other. A garbage dump that's fit for neither. All right, it says here, rather they are sold and the money received from the sale is donated to the temple. Okay, so something that's not fit is going to be for sacrifice or for maintenance. Says here it'll be sold and the money from that will be donated. What is the case of an item fit for sacrifice on the altar, but not fit for temple maintenance? Okay, so they're coming up with examples of each of the different cases. So we have the cistern, the garbage dump, and now we have, if one consecrated a dovecote full of pigeons, the pigeons are fit for the altar, while the dovecote is not fit even for temple maintenance. So a dovecote holds the pigeons, and I'll actually talk more about dovecotes later. So, and also maybe we'll talk about bird sacrifices in the Bible a little bit. So the pigeons are fit for the altar, but the dovecote full of the bird poop and where the birds live is not fit even for temple maintenance. Now look, he goes, or if one consecrated a tree full of fruit. So the case of an item fit for sacrifice but not fit for temple maintenance, it looks like this person is not confident that the dovecote is a good example. And I'm thinking that's, what can you do with a dovecote for maintaining a temple? Water in a cistern can be used to make mud to patch walls. But how exactly is the dovecote going to be used in maintenance for the temple? So maybe they felt like they need to give another example. So, or if one consecrated a tree full of fruit, as the fruit is fit for the altar, whereas the tree is not fit even for temple maintenance. So later, there's a verse that if you have fruit on a tree, you're not supposed to cut that down. So I'll look at that later, afterwards. Why you might not want to cut a tree down that bears fruit, according to the Bible. All right. So if one consecrated tree full of fruit, the fruit is fit for the altar. The tree is not fit even for temple maintenance. All right. And I think that's because you're not supposed to cut it. For example, grapes are fit for the altar as wine, but the vines are not fit for temple maintenance as they are too flimsy for construction. It does look like he's struggling a little bit for an example here of a case of an item fit for sacrifice on the altar, but not fit for temple maintenance. Another case where the consecrated item is fit for neither the altar nor temple maintenance is a field full of grass. Maybe later we'll look at fields full of grass. I suspect the issue with the grass is that animals will tend to graze on fields full of grass. So, so that field full of grass where the animals pee, poop, and graze is so the consecrated item, the field full of grass, is not fit for the altar, and it's not fit for temple maintenance, according to this. In all those cases, one is liable for misusing both them and that which is within them. Let's see, so the cistern has water in it. A garbage dump has the manure in it. A tree has the fruit on it. A dovecote has birds in it. A field has grass on it. Okay? And it says, in all those cases, one is liable for misusing both them and that which is within them, as those that are unfit for use in the temple will be sold, and their money will be used for the altar or for temple maintenance. So since it says in all those cases, it seems to say that one is liable for misusing each of the items, and it's making analogy with those that are unfit for use in the temple, being sold for money will be used for the... Okay, so in this case, it looks like because they could be sold and the money used for the altar or temple maintenance, you are liable for misusing those items according to this. But if one consecrated an empty cistern and it was subsequently filled with water, or if one consecrated an empty garbage dump and it was subsequently filled with manure, or an empty dovecote and it was subsequently filled with pigeons, or a tree without fruit and it was subsequently filled with fruit, or an empty field and it was subsequently filled with grass, in all these cases, one is liable for misusing them, but one is not liable for misusing that which is within them. There is no misuse with regard to enhancements that developed in consecrated property. So here they review all the examples we had, the cistern, the garbage dump, the dovecote, or a lot of the examples. They look at the tree and the field. And basically, this says you're liable for misusing them, but you are not liable for misusing that as within them, which is within them, because apparently later in time it was filled with water. Or later the garbage dump was filled with manure. Or later the clean dovecote was later filled with pigeons, or the tree that was fruitless then later had fruit, or the empty field which had no grass, and so I would imagine no animals grazed on it or anything, and then the field was filled with grass. So all this stuff came later, and you are not liable for misusing that which is within them. Rabbi Yosei disagrees in two of the above cases and says, in the case of one who consecrates the empty field in which grass grew, or the empty tree on which fruit grew, he is liable for misusing both them and their growth, because these are growths of consecrated property, despite the fact that they grew there only after the property was consecrated. So the grass naturally grew, the fruit naturally grew. So for some reason, those are considered consecrated because they're parts of those items. But for some reason, it does not consider the water in the cistern, its status having changed, or the manure, or the doves having their status changed, but they do consider the tree and the grass having its status changed. Apropos, or appropriately, right? Apropos means used to introduce something that is related to or connected with something that has just been said. Okay, so connected to what's been said. Apropos, the growths of consecrated property. The Mishnah states that an offspring born to a tithed animal before it was tithed may not be given to suckle from the tithed mother, as it is a non-sacred animal that may not be allowed to derive benefit from consecrated property. So now we have a new example. We have an animal. It has a baby born. Then the mother is set aside to be tithed. And the rule apparently is that the offspring cannot suckle from that mother because a non-sacred animal may not be allowed to derive benefit from consecrated property. That's the rule. And there are others who stipulate in this manner, i.e., that the consecration does not apply to the milk. The same is true of the offspring of sacrificial animals born to them before their consecration. They may not suckle from the sacrificial animal. And in this case as well, there are others who stipulate in this manner, i.e., to enable the offspring to suckle. So apparently there's a question if an animal has a child and then the animal is to be sacrificed. So once they're going to be sacrificed, they're consecrated. Once something is going to be tithed, it's consecrated. So the same issue apparently applies. They may not suckle from the sacrificial animal. All right. The laborers who are generally permitted to eat the food of their employer may not eat from consecrated dried figs. Okay, again, we have a situation. People work, and then they're going to eat. So there's a certain sequence there. Dried figs we'll look at probably later. Okay, the laborers who are generally permitted to eat the food of their employer may not eat from consecrated dried figs if they work with temple produce. Rather, they can buy food with the money they are paid. Okay, so now we have an example that consecrated figs cannot be eaten by the laborers if they're consecrated. Rather, and likewise, a cow working with consecrated property, e.g., threshing temple produce, may not eat from consecrated vetch, mikarshanai. So I'll probably look at vetch later, what that word means.